There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Carl Jung. You may feel it now, deep inside, a quiet unrest, a stirring you can't quite name, yet it whispers that something in your life is about to change forever. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke about the hidden signs of transformation, the subtle and often misunderstood signals that appear when your soul is preparing for a new chapter. Think about it. How many times in your life have you found yourself questioning everything you once thought was stable? A relationship, a career, even the very image you held of yourself. Suddenly, it no longer fits, and the comfort of certainty begins to dissolve. Most people mistake this moment for failure, or collapse, or even punishment, but Jung saw it differently. He believed that when the familiar cracks open, when the mask you wore for so long begins to slip, you are not losing yourself. You are being invited to meet your true self for the first time. And though it rarely feels like a blessing in the moment, this quiet disorientation is one of the clearest indications that you are on the threshold of profound transformation. You might notice it in sleepless nights filled with unexplainable thoughts, or in sudden emotions that rise without warning, or in dreams that carry strange symbols you cannot ignore. You might feel as if you are standing between two worlds, the one you are leaving behind and the one you cannot yet see. This is the hidden sign Jung spoke of, not something dramatic or obvious, but a deep inner tremor that signals the breaking open of new consciousness. In this video, we will explore this hidden sign together, and you will see why what feels like confusion, pain, or loss is not proof of weakness, but a profound invitation to grow. So, as you listen, allow yourself to relax into the possibility that the struggles you face are not random, but part of a greater design, quietly guiding you toward the person you were always meant to become. Carl Jung believed that true transformation rarely begins in moments of comfort or clarity. It almost always begins in the shadow of conflict, in the heaviness of inner pain that refuses to be ignored. He observed that the soul does not awaken when life flows smoothly, but when we are forced to confront the parts of ourselves we would rather hide. This is where his concept of the shadow becomes essential. The shadow is not simply the dark side of our personality in a moral sense, but the collection of all the traits, emotions, and impulses we deny, repress, or cannot accept about ourselves. It holds our anger, envy, fear, desires, and unspoken wounds. For Jung, the sudden surfacing of these hidden parts, through conflict, emotional turmoil, or even a crisis of meaning, was not a sign of failure, but the clearest indication that transformation was beginning. Imagine a person who has built their life around being the good one, always pleasing others, always smiling, always avoiding confrontation. On the surface, this seems stable, admirable even, but one day, without warning, a deep sense of emptiness appears. They feel restless, detached, unable to recognize the self they see in the mirror. At first, this feels terrifying. Am I losing myself? Am I broken? But Jung would say, no, you are not breaking, you are awakening. The shadow has begun to stir, demanding to be seen. The hidden anger at never speaking your truth, the unacknowledged grief of suppressing your needs, the silent frustration of living for others. These rise to the surface like waves crashing against the shore. And in that chaos lies the first sign of change. To face the shadow is to step into the most uncomfortable of spaces, because it asks you to acknowledge that you are more than the role you have played, more than the image you have carefully crafted for the world. But Jung's wisdom was clear. Only by facing the shadow does the light of true consciousness emerge. What feels like collapse is, in fact, the soul tearing down an identity too small for its growth. What feels like emptiness is actually the clearing of old structures to make space for something larger. In this sense, the inner conflict, the loss of certainty, the sudden weight of emotions you cannot control, these are not punishments, but hidden signs that you are standing at the threshold of a deeper life. Jung compared this to a kind of psychological death and rebirth, the death of the false self and the birth of a more authentic one. Think of the person in our example. What looks like a crisis of identity is actually the moment they begin to realize that pleasing others has been a mask, and the emptiness is the first breath of freedom, calling them to claim their real voice. To ignore this sign is to fall back into unconscious patterns. To face it is to step into transformation. This is why Jung insisted that the path to growth is not about avoiding pain, but about entering it with courage, because within the shadow lies the seed of new life. And so if you find yourself restless, lost, or overwhelmed by emotions you thought you had buried, know this: you may not be breaking down at all. You may be standing at the very doorway through which your transformation has already begun. When Carl Jung spoke about transformation, he was not merely describing a passive experience of suffering, but a conscious invitation to engage with what rises from within. The appearance of the hidden sign, the restlessness, the emptiness, the eruption of feelings you thought you had mastered, is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of it. And the way you respond to this moment determines whether the pain becomes destructive or transformative. The first step, Jung insisted, is to recognize and acknowledge your emotions rather than denying them. Most people, when confronted with sadness, anger, or fear, push them away, label them as wrong, or drown them in distraction. But repression only feeds the shadow, and what we resist grows stronger in silence. To sit with your emotions, to give them a name, and to say, "Yes, this is part of me," is to shine light into the places you once left in darkness. This act of acceptance does not mean you are consumed by negativity. It means you are no longer enslaved by it. From here, Jung encouraged the practice of deep self-reflection, particularly through dreams. He saw dreams not as meaningless fragments, but as coded messages from the unconscious, guiding you toward truths the conscious mind cannot yet grasp. Paying attention to recurring symbols, to patterns in your night visions, can reveal what the soul is trying to bring to the surface. Jung often advised writing dreams down immediately upon waking, then reflecting on what emotions or memories they stirred. Because in this way, the unconscious begins to speak more clearly. Beyond dreams, there are many ways to reconnect with your inner world. Writing freely, without censorship, can open hidden doors. Even speaking to yourself in quiet dialogue, asking questions and letting the answers come intuitively, can help you hear what the rational mind often silences. These practices are not about solving problems instantly, but about building a bridge to the deeper self that already holds the wisdom you need. At the core of Jung's teaching is the idea that pain itself is meaningful, that it is not an obstacle to be resisted, but a signal that something greater is trying to emerge. Instead of asking, "How can I make this go away?" Jung would urge you to ask, "What is this experience trying to teach me? What truth is hidden within this discomfort?" In that shift of perspective, the same suffering that once felt unbearable can become a guide. You realize that the hidden sign you feared was not a curse, but a compass, pointing you toward authenticity. And once you begin to recognize this, freedom follows. Not the shallow freedom of escaping your struggles, but the deeper freedom of no longer needing to run from yourself. You see that transformation is not a single event, but a slow, unfolding journey. And the very moment you feared was the first step toward growth. The awareness of this hidden sign does not end your pain immediately, but it changes your relationship to it. It allows you to see that your struggles are not proof of weakness, but evidence of a new life being born within you. To live with this awareness is to live with courage, for you know that each shadow you face expands your capacity for light. And, in that, you discover what Jung meant all along. That transformation is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more fully who you already are. In the end, What may feel like deep confusion, restlessness, or even unbearable emotional pain is often not a sign of collapse, but the quiet announcement that your life is preparing to transform. Jung reminded us of this when he said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." What you carry within you, the doubts, the shadows, the moments when everything seems uncertain, may be the very evidence that your old self is giving way to a truer, stronger, and freer version of who you are meant to be. So, if you are feeling lost today, know that it may be the very proof that your life is aligning with a deeper purpose. Transformation does not arrive in comfort, and it does not unfold in a straight line. But once you see the hidden sign for what it is, you realize that what you are living through is not punishment. It is preparation. And perhaps that knowledge alone can give you the strength to walk forward with trust, even when the path is still dark. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Have you ever felt this hidden sign stirring in your own life? Share it in the comments below, and let us continue this journey of depth and discovery together. And if you found value in these reflections, don't forget to subscribe for more insights inspired by the wisdom of Carl Jung.